with over 15 years of experience in design. Nicole Bergquist is the Senior Director of Interior Design at Sunrise Senior Living and has been instrumental in handling all aspects of renovations for their communities, from top to bottom, construction to selecting furniture components. Nicole's expertise ensures that every project is executed with precision and excellence. Today, we'll be discussing the latest trends and innovations in senior design, offering insights into her approach to efficiently creating comfortable and welcoming environments for residents. So Sunrise Senior Living was founded in 1981 and based on a clear mission to champion quality of life for all seniors. The mission endures to this day, and similar to how Folio listens to our users, they listen to their team members, residents, and family members to help craft their vision to create the preferred lifestyle for enjoying happier, healthier, and longer lives. With that, there's obviously a lot of aspects that go into that. Every residence has their own needs based on their biological age, legal age, functional age, psychological age, and social age. So of course, and no one wants to live in a hospital-like environment. So you have to find a way to mix both comfort and safety. Nicole, how would you say that you handle this challenge to making sure that people feel welcomed while still being cared for properly?
Well, it's not easy, and it's definitely built on decades of experience in this industry specifically. Our department has come along Sunrise from the very beginning when we opened the very first community, and been integral in making decisions for the interior environments for our residents. So we've built our criteria over many, many years of experience, and our goal has always been to combine a residential-like aesthetic with a scale and proportion, special attention to colors and depth perception, contrast between colors and patterns on furniture and walls to make sure that the environment is easy for our residents to navigate, that they can have independence. The arm heights on chairs, for example, are extremely important. The pitch and seat height are important. So all of those details have been crafted over years to make sure that the environment is easy for our residents to navigate, while also presenting the home-like feel that we would all be very happy to have in our own environments at home.
Do you use any technologies to ensure that the right safety equipment is installed in each facility?
Well, I mean, previous to Folio, it was a very manual process, reviewing furniture scale and dimensions before they get ordered by our department, by our team members. And then reviewing things in person, post-install to make sure that those depth and scale and proportions worked in the space. Low tech, but there are glasses that you can get out there. The most common ones that we use are yellow tinted glasses. And so when you look through those, you can see the color change that happens with furniture, fabrics, and finishes in your space. And that way you can make sure that the combination of colors you're pulling together for your project look good to us, with a more youthful eye to the adult child who's shopping for a place for their parents, as well as the residents who would live in the environment. There's many others you can get that simulate the different conditions of the aging eye that can exist, where your vision, narrows, spots and things like that you may see, and how does that interact with the fabric and patterns that you may be choosing for your furniture.
Okay, so what are the challenges that go into more the specific of the design of the project? So what are the challenges you're seeing face, all design projects worldwide right now? Maybe not worldwide, but right now within your field.
Well, in senior living specifically, some of the trends that we're looking at, trying to bring into the spaces is a lighter, brighter, open environment. If you think about senior living typically follows residential trends by a couple of years. So, we all went to big open spaces, connected spaces in our own living environments. Our common areas in senior living have had the same trend over the last few years. And so focusing on a lot of renovations myself, how do we open up from one space to an adjacent space, to provide those sight lines, to make the spaces themselves feel bigger, maybe less intimate. That itself comes with challenges for senior living because you don't want noise to be an issue. You know, some people have a challenge hearing if there's too much reverberation in the room. So how can we make sure that we're specifying finishes and materials that help protect the acoustic nature of the space as we open it up and make it feel bigger? Hard surface flooring is a huge one for that. I mean, everyone is wanting hard surface flooring, both in their own homes as well as in our environments today, and that can impact noise. So acoustics is a big factor. The ever-evolving technology aspects. I mean, there's a lot more available in technology today than there were 10 years from now. And when we're opening new buildings or doing a top to bottom renovation today, we want to make sure that as much as possible, we're setting up the infrastructure to facilitate a future version of technology that we can't even imagine what those options may be today. So those are some of the challenges. In order to do so, multifunctional spaces have become really popular. So it may be a living room, but it can also function as their game room. It could be an auditorium, which may also have movie nights or dances hosted. And so making sure that there's flexibility in how you are able to use the space is important for the activities being hosted in these communities today, but significantly more important in the future as well.
So obviously all of these things come with a cost.
Yeah.
All the materials, the labor costs, even funding, with the interest rates, everything's going up. How do you help manage that for ensuring that you do get the funding for projects?
Yeah, I mean, this is a real challenge in our industry today. I think whether you're talking, your own renovation projects in your own home or commercially as well, interest rates are high and it's hard to come by the money. So the timing of when we implemented Folio really couldn't have been better for our purposes because it's allowed us to present more transparency in the documentation in a very professional way. The ease of printing reports from the system has been very helpful for us as we move through the process to get funding. There's more incremental check-ins with the owners who are providing that funding. There's a more desire to see and understand the detail behind what is part of that project that they're funding. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was on a call with an architect who was sharing the same approval process. There's more check-ins required and incremental approvals being given. And so the ability to, at any point in time, share with transparency the details of the specifications we have with the reporting out of Folio has been hugely helpful.
Could you go into a little bit more specifics on how Folio helps with that?
Well, so before Folio, like many others out there, we were probably that are probably also using Excel-based reporting, a lot of PDFs or Bluebeam, which we still use all of those for other reasons today. But it's a significantly more manual process to print the level of professional reporting that is available from Folio at a click of a few buttons. So as you're evolving a project, if we were going to convert something to PDF or take notes on a PDF, that becomes a very manual process. Today, if I need to change dimensions on a specification across 10 projects and reprint something for the owners, I can do it in the library, push that to all 10 projects, accept it, print the reports, and it's done. Whereas I would have had to individually do that 10 times across 10 other manual reports in the past.
Okay. And then what was the major deciding factor when you started looking at systems like Folio and wanting to implement something?
Well, above all else, I mean, there's a lot of detailed reasons, which I think we'll talk about in a moment, but the big thing was this environment of continuous improvement. And so when you actually asked about the opportunity of being on this call, it was one of the reasons why I wanted to join and talk to those who are interested in hearing from both of us on this call, because we are, Sunrise as a whole was founded in this idea of continuous improvement and always striving through each project in each community to serve our residents better. And I could tell that your company was founded in the same ideals. Just from when we first started the interview process to when we finally made our selection of which company we were going with, some of the opportunities for improvement in the system that we had wanted to see were already done in that short couple of month review timeline process we went through. So that was kind of sealed the deal for us. But also the amount of time that you've been in the industry and been doing it as a cloud-based system was really helpful for us. We felt confident because of that in the software. Those were our main reasons. But the way that the interconnectivity that the specifications have, whether it's through the library or project to project, and that just transparency across, okay, I've specified this fabric on this sofa. How many other times have I done that? And the ability to look that information up in the system, that was already such a solid part of the program you guys had built was a huge part for us as well.
Yeah, so actually, something you mentioned there with, being able to identify where items have been used in the past. How do you use Folio to manage your discontinued items? Because I know that was another reason why you selected Folio.
Yeah. So it's a little different. We do the same process with discontinued items. So we had a scenario recently where the way that we were entering the televisions that we order, for example, we wanted to change that process. And so we used the discontinued feature in the library to publish that those were discontinued and then communicate to our department that we were redirecting them to select their TVs in a different way. Whether, you could do that if the scale or dimension of that TV, you've determined this type of TV is too small and you don't want to use it anymore. The replacement can be added to Folio, and you can direct your team to select that through the library as well. When it comes to more specifics that you're talking about, like an actual console or end table, something like that that's discontinued, you can mark it as discontinued in the library, push it to all the projects, and then share with the team very openly. You have access by looking at the way the library is created. You can see which other 5 projects that end table was specified in, and then share with those designers the reselection that you've picked. Whereas in the past, those discontinued items would be dealt with more in a vacuum. As a singular designer, I might get the notification that this item was back ordered or discontinued in my project. And then I reselect that and I move on, not realizing and not having the access to the data that 5 or 10 other projects may be in that same boat, and we could save time and be more efficient in our reselection options.
I know with how big your team is, that you guys have been taking a more cautious approach to your implementation of Folio, making sure everything's in place in the processes that you want prior to expanding it to all of the use cases that it offers. What has your implementation process been like?
Yeah,
What's your experience with that?
It started slow. We had a team that we put together of about 5 to 10 of our team members here that had a lot of experience from varying levels of position, from entry level to mid-level to senior positions on the team. And each one of them had a different perspective on what we needed out of the process. Another reason we chose Folio was the customization of the columns and the information, and how there was many options in the way you could put it together, which allowed us to build the platform for our own use in a way that mimicked the processes we were using beforehand, so that by the time we were ready to implement across 30 plus team members, that the format and the platform we were using had changed, but the processes that we had in place had not changed, which really helped with the adoption of it. And by the way, we were able to do all that customization without like a special customization. I know you have the option for customized reporting, but we haven't even had to utilize that yet, which was, just shows the innate ability to customize within the system itself that is available. So we had about 6 months of the team building the dashboard, building the platform, testing a couple of projects of various sizes, some of the different features that were most important to us. We also came alongside that process and had a team of 2 designers that put a really thorough job aid together to make sure that how we had chosen to set the platform up was, individualized and customized, and made that training element really clear and simple for the rest of our team. So then we hosted a training internally with the whole department, and kind of our team that we had put together walked through our processes from start to finish with each team member present, and they walked through the system and did everything live in the room with us while we were walking through that. And we decided to adopt it all at once. So once the team who had set it all together finalized everything, everyone on the department was in the system working on it together right away, and we did a full sweep transition and stopped using Excel and PDF at that point in time. Since then, we've been about a year. We're reaching just about the year mark of the entire department using Folio. And I will say that we just kind of keep getting better in how we find more efficiencies and ways that we can use the platform to streamline our processes and help make data available across multiple team members in a more streamlined way.
What does your design process look like? Your entire project from, you know, ideology, design to procurement and then completion. What does that look like today?
So for our department specifically, there's a whole process outside of our department, which comes with the operator gets involved and the owner and funding gets involved. And we have a planning process to kind of understand what is the goal of this project. But setting that part of the process aside and saying it's been established that we have a project to work on, which is sort of where Folio comes into place. The first step is determining, for our purposes, we do have a lot of standards that we're able to utilize, determining, does this project need those standards, or are there going to be more customizations available within that project? And so you start to scour the internet and find options. At that point in time, we're typically building the project in Folio with the spaces that we have available in the scope, and maybe using the web clipper to add items to the project through that, a little bit of the mood boards or, some PowerPoint outside of Folio at that point in time. One of the features that I like the best, we often start, every designer does it differently, whether they start with fabrics or start with furniture frames, but the ability to add fabrics to your project across Folio, you can go in and you can search which fabrics have been specified recently by your team members. It's a great way to go in and get a sense of some fresher fabric options that maybe you haven't used yet. And then you can order those samples. You can see there what they are, make a list, order samples, add those to your project. From there, once it gets more refined, you've done your space planning in AutoCAD and make sure the scales and proportions of things are right for the layout and function of that space. We have a lot of internal review steps with our senior level staff who will make sure that from a programming perspective, the layouts will work for the project. And then we get into pricing. So Folio allows us to have some transparency across product and fabric options. So we know that before we even send something to pricing, that we're in the right realm of costs that we should be for that project, that we're aligned with the scope, whether it's a low, medium, or high price, price point project. We have some insight into that data, but then we send it to pricing. We have a team of individuals who work with our vendors to get that pricing, and Folio's also allowed us to customize where they had access to the pricing columns, but not necessarily to change everything, but we're all working on the same dashboard, which has really been helpful. That was the manual process where it would just be written on Excel or PDF before, so that's a huge help. And we can even see, because we're working on the same dashboard as they're getting pricing back from the various vendors, we can see how many vendors we're waiting on pricing back from through that process. And then they'll notify us once all the pricing is back, and we can use the budget source portion of Folio's dashboard to see what the total cost is of all those elements we specified. Once we're sure that we're in budget and ready to order it, then we push a report outside of Folio. We're not using Folio for procurement today, although the fact that it's an option for us to grow into is definitely one of our decision-making factors. So we push a report outside of Folio, and that gets entered into a different system. As the department is such a large company, we have a procurement software that's been decided on by many other factors than just the design portion of that. So it's ordered. And then over time consolidated and ultimately delivered. We use our Folio reports for creating our installation package, which is our guidelines for exactly where everything should be placed within the community. So we have all the columns in our dashboard that we need to produce that report. and then it gets installed. And then we've got then, and I know another point we wanted to touch on here was life cycle and over time, if we've had challenges with the installation of a product, that's another way we can use, jumping around here a bit, but the discontinued element you mentioned. Maybe we had a product that was installed at the end of that project and we've determined that it didn't wear as well as we wanted it to, or that the scale and dimensions proportions were not as suitable as we would like to see, or any number of challenges. We can actually mark, even if it's not discontinued by the vendor, we can mark it as discontinued in our library, and then make sure that we stop other designers in their tracks from selecting that item for their project. So it's another way that we can help serve seniors better, and put a stop to what's in progress faster than manual processes would have ever allowed.
I believe you actually manage, keep track of it kind of manually or in another system, whether items are being damaged currently. Is there a
Yep.
plan to move that into Folio in the future?
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, the number of different columns that we can add and with notes and things like that, it's a great opportunity. Most of the time our furniture, is intended to last anywhere from 5 to 7 or more years. And so we haven't quite seen, we're very early in the adoption process. It'd be fascinating to see 10 years from now what this is like, and how we're able to use the volume of data we'll have in the system at that point in time. So we haven't seen a lot of that yet, but there's a lot of opportunities.
All right, awesome. What do you find that makes Folio easy to use? Because I know, obviously, with any system, it's a learning curve to get everyone implemented on it. Has there anything that's helped with Folio, or anything that could also be improved on?
Yeah, so repetition is a big one when it comes to implementation and learning. And so, just like with any other design firm, I'm sure we have different team members who are at different points in their project process, whether they're heavy in construction documents, which is a little bit less applicable in our case for Folio, or whether they're heavy in the furniture design aspect. As we've progressed over the last year of implementing across the department, we have some team members who have just done a lot more in Folio, and so they've become very efficient in that process. And so it really points out that just like anything else, repetition of using it is really important to that adoption and increasing your efficiency within the system. But at varying levels, for me particularly, for our design managers and our directors, the ability, I had a scenario recently where there was a strange kind of fire code safety note on the back of a fabric that we were considering using for a project. And I was like, well, that's weird. I'm not sure exactly what treatment we may need to add or how to handle this. And so I was able to use Folio to go in and look up and see how many other projects have we specified this on, if it was already ordered, what notes and what treatment styles did we use on that example in the past, and get that answer very easily. Whereas, like we've been talking about, that would have otherwise been a manual process. I would have had to hold the fabric up in a room full of people, which with this technology age doesn't happen as often as it used to, and say, does anybody use this fabric before? And that would have been the only way. And if no one remembers, there would have been no way to search that information in the past. So at my in my role, that's one of the favorite features that I have, is just the ease of being able to search how often have we specified this chair in the last year. That information is available at your fingertips where it was not previously.
How do you ensure that, with that, something like that could be a brand item? How do you ensure that you're staying on brand with all the items that you do select?
Great question. It's a combination of the library. We've also chosen to create a project that we use when you're as a standard. So we have some projects, like I mentioned earlier, that are very customized, and some projects that maybe follow more standardized specifications. And so for those standardized specifications, they exist as their own project, which can be very easily copied into other projects on an individual basis. So we've used both features within Folio. But there's definitely still a manual component when it comes to the review of the products before they're ordered. So we have, a senior level team member who is reviewing that project before it goes to purchase orders in every case. I mean, that's not something I think we should get beyond, because we all have expertise we've built over decades of experience, and it's an important part of the process.
But of course, you can still track that workflow and those approvals
Yeah,
within Folio to make sure the
absolutely.
right systems
Exactly.
are in place.
Yeah, exactly.
Make sure John from accounting is approving the budget.
Yep.
Um, so with that, I mean, you've covered a lot in this short period of time, a lot more than I thought we'd cover this quickly. um, what do you think? What has helped you the most with implementing Folio? So a lot of decision makers aren't ready to convert to a new software. They like what they have. It is a big decision to change softwares to implement your team to something new. What would you say to those people who are very hesitant to change?
What I always suggest you look at is what are the deficiencies or the things that you're not able to do today with your current software, and what would that look like 2, 3, 5 years from now if you started today? I mentioned this earlier, but to kind of go back to the idea that I didn't predict that we would be in the financial situation where interest rates were this high when we made the decision to transition to Folio a year and a half ago. But if we hadn't, we would be in a much more difficult scenario to print reports that we are needing to print in order to get the continuous approvals that we're receiving. So, there are efficiencies in process, and there are major benefits down the line at stake for not making those decisions to progress with technology and roll with the change that's required to improve the way that you're doing things from how you're doing them today. So the risk of not doing it often is the biggest decision to do it, if that makes sense.
What have you seen for time management wise, your efficiency change? Do you feel like things are going faster or things are going more efficiently or just are there less delays, anything like that? What have you noticed?
Absolutely. Well, our capacity to get the work done within a finite amount of time in order to deliver our projects on time and within budget has improved significantly. The ease of ability of recreating the projects, those standards, like I mentioned, or if something was really successful at a project, being able to pull exactly what that specification is into another project was transparency of data. It's been huge. It's been really helpful.
Awesome. At this time, we're actually going to open it up for questions. Send it into the chat, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. We have one now. Could you go a little bit more into, give a specific example of, the different materials you're selecting and how you go about selecting those to make sure that they're in line
Good
with the
one.
industry?
Yeah, that's a good one. So for us right now, we're using Folio specifically for furniture specification. So Car mentioned earlier about how we as a big department have chosen to implement Folio slowly over time for our use. We started with that furniture process. That was the one that was the most manual in how we were pulling the data together at the time that we onboarded the Folio solution. So within the system, it's like I said, furniture, fabrics, like wood finishes on case goods, things like that. We do have a plan to bring our interior finish and lighting and equipment specifications into Folio over the next year or so, but we haven't adopted that yet. So my experience in that transparency of data is limited to the furniture and fabrics, but at a high level thinking for the process, I can see where it will be, even more effective. Lighting is a great one, is an easy one to have challenges with, especially with discontinueds or availability of product. That transparency of how often have we used this wall sconce and was it successful, scale, proportion, all those things are really impactful. And so I'm personally excited, but adopting, new software is important, but doing so at a measured pace that allows for your team to be successful with it, is important as well. Did that answer the question?
I think so.
Okay.
Another question. Are you doing anything to automate your workflow for communications right now?
Well, I would say the pricing element is the most automated, right? So as our team of individuals who do the pricing for us, and interact with vendors, whereas they used to get all that information back from all vendors and then send it at one time, they're able to enter that information into Folio, and we're able to see where our pricing is coming back as they receive that. So that transparency of information is helpful. We do have columns where we can mark product is approved. We have columns that we created where we can put notes in the project where the managers reviewed it and the arm height is too high on a chair for the scale and proportion for our residents. That note can be put in there and the designer knows what to change. Whereas before that would be, written on a PDF or maybe even on a sticky note and handed back to someone. But in this case, it can be memorialized in a notes column that we've created for the approvers who are reviewing the project.
All right, cool. Any other questions? Those are the 2 questions we have in the chat. Anyone else? Also, feel free to unmic yourself if you want to ask it live.
This is not a question. Yeah, I was going to say, this isn't a question that we discussed previously, but I'm thinking about all the reasons why we chose Folio. And I will say the quickness with which you all answer the help desk live help questions, and the way that they're archived in that message has been amazing for us. Whether it's an individual designer who's working on something almost at all hours of the night as well. I mean, even after hours and none of us are available and they don't remember how to do something, that live help has been great. As well as if we have something that we want to just put a note out there for you guys to consider for future improvements. We've used the live help chat for that many times before and seen some of those updates come to fruition. So the live help has been wonderful.
What are some of those updates that you requested that have come to fruition?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I don't have them written down, but I know they're there. I mean, the furniture blocks is one that has come about recently. So it's different ways that you can standardize like kits, for example. So we have in our memory care neighborhoods, we have what we call life skill kits. And so it's a collection of maybe 10 items that we want to order at one time all together every time. And so we started using the furniture blocks for that. Is something that didn't exist when we first started. So it's a little bit of we didn't ask for that exactly that way, but we were asking for, is there a way that we can take something that's a kit of parts and order it all at one time? And that was a great answer to that.
That actually is a very new feature that came out in January, I believe. That's great to hear that you're using that.
Yeah.
Cool. That's all that we have here.
Aaron had raised
he clapped his hands thanking that.
Oh, got it. Oh, for the live help. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Again, if you do have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email at marketing@folio.com. We'll be happy to get back to you. Thank you again, Nicole, for joining us. We really appreciate all the insight you've shared with us and just you taking the time to be here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for helping us make our processes better now and more to come in the future. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.